When the solar markets collapsed, Blu Banyan, a sustainability-focused software company, lost 25% of their clients. They had to let go of their entire marketing team and cut 75% of sales. Now, most companies would have paused everything, but instead of retreating, Jan brought us in to rebuild their go-to-market. We started by identifying their main constraints. Where was growth blocked? What was actually stopping momentum? Then we fixed them and rebuilt a system around what actually worked for them. I'm Chris, founder of Plucky Bamboo, and in this conversation you'll hear directly from Jan Rippingale, founder and CEO of Blu Banyan, as we walk through how we rebuilt their growth from the inside out. Their bottlenecks were voice, positioning, and outbound, and while every business is different, the work is always the same. Find the real constraints, fix them, and unlock the next stage of growth. If you're leading a sustainability business and your growth feels stuck, this conversation might feel familiar. So, let's get into it.
I'm Jan Rippingale. I'm the CEO of Blu Banyan, and Blu Banyan is focused on helping us deploy more solar faster. And we do that by building software that helps solar installers run their businesses more efficiently so that we can have a lower cost of getting the distributed energy resources deployed so that we can make the transition to a sustainable model as soon as we can. Save the kids from having to do it.
Can you tell us a little bit about your vision for Blu Banyan, what it is that you're building there?
So for me, Blu Banyan is really a model for how you can make change in the world. And I specifically love game-changing systemic shifts. I think these are the only kinds of changes that really stick. So when you make a game-changing shift, you change how the rules of the game work system-wide so that everybody just does it the new way, almost by gravity. They may not even be aware that this is the new way that things work. And those are the shifts that I think make the biggest difference and actually take the least amount of energy and consensus. Because if your idea is correct, people will there will be a natural inclination to want to make that systemic shift. And if your idea is not, you'll get the feedback you need early from friction from the market or employees or whomever that it's too much and be able to adapt. So this is how I think as a culture, we need to think about how we're making systemic changes for the world that we're going to leave to our children. And so that is my vision with Blu Banyan, is that it's an incubator for game-changing systemic shifts.
What kind of growth challenges was Blu Banyan facing before we started working together?
So the solar industry had done really well and grown like wildfire in the low interest rate economy. 85% of residential solar is financed because, it's $30,000, just like, the car loans. People are going to finance that size purchase typically. And when the interest rates went up, the value proposition for residential solar was dramatically changed. At the same time, there's big regulation changes in the state of California called NEM3. So the solar coaster went from riding a high to riding the deepest low we've seen so far. And that happened probably mid-2023. And ultimately, we ended with 25% of our residential solar installers fully going out of business because the business, just the dynamics of the financing made such a difference to the value proposition for solar that it wiped that out. So we had to adjust. We had let go of our entire marketing team and we reduced our sales team dramatically, probably by 75%. So our marketing team had been reduced by 100% and our sales team was reduced by 75%. When we met, Chris, that was what we had just gone through. We had been very successful in 2022 prior to the interest rates going up, as they started gradually changing in late 2022 and then had their full impact in 2023. So when we met in 2024, Blu Banyan was not starting from scratch, but starting from less than we had earlier.
So obviously that's quite a dramatic shift. How did that make you feel?
Well, it has been really, really hard. I have such respect for CEOs who have gone through this. I have not gone through such a dramatic change in the market before in my career as a CEO. So it was really, really hard. The thing I like the least is letting go of people who didn't do anything wrong, right? There just isn't the business to support them. And that's my least favorite thing in the entire universe. So we went from 81 to 32 people, and it has been a journey this entire time. So that's so I just felt totally miserable about letting people go. I didn't do deep enough cuts early enough because I didn't read how long and persistent the challenge would be. And so I learned a ton. So I feel humble. And also, it's a great opportunity to consolidate and to learn more about all of the areas of the business that I hadn't actually done a deep dive in while we were scaling so fast. So, there's good and bad in everything.
Before, I guess, the market took a bit of a dip, as the CEO, what was your biggest frustration about scaling the business?
My biggest frustration before the dip was that it was very difficult to scale the expertise required. And I don't think we spent enough time putting in systems and processes internally ourselves because we grew at 40% and then 70%. So we had very high growth rates and we hadn't scaled well enough to get all of those processes and clarity in place to get the expertise that we needed. So hiring the right people right the first time was probably our biggest challenge. And then the next challenge was getting those people up to date with the expertise that they need, because they do need technical expertise and they need some business expertise and they need some accounting expertise. In our case, solar expertise was desired, but you really need to be able to tell a story and understand what the value of delivering an element of the system is and to be able to talk about that. And finding the people who were technically capable, accounting capable, business capable, and could also relate and tell a story was a real journey. We have a team full of people like that now that we've very consciously developed, and it was not how it worked when we were at 80 people. So we have dramatically improved, ironically, the quality of our team over this time period, not just because the numbers shifted, but because our expectations were clarified and processes improved. And it's really actually been a real positive. Who would have guessed?
Before we started working together, what had you tried in terms of marketing and sales that hadn't worked, that may have worked?
So we tried a bunch of different marketing and sales efforts. We tried a lot of digital ads, and we actually had only kind of spammy responses from that. We didn't get any really good leads, or so few that it didn't make an impression upon me. So we didn't do digital ads well, or it didn't apply to our market as we're B2B or something. So I had a super bad taste in my mouth about digital advertising in general working. We had a newsletter, but we weren't really getting enough of a call to action or responses from that newsletter. We were doing a lot of trade shows, and trade shows worked. Trade shows worked well for us. They continue to do well for us. Solar is essentially a construction industry. Talking to people is still super effective. But we tried a lot of ways to make that lower touch so that we could get more business, and none of them really succeeded at scale. So we tried a whole bunch of different things that should work, and none of them really did work for us other than in-person trade shows.
Why do you feel like they didn't work?
I think there were a couple issues. One is that we hadn't clearly identified what the Blu Banyan voice was going to be. And so the quality of that communication was kind of something like you would get from AI nowadays. It's kind of generic and may or may not make sense, and it just has a lot of keywords smashed into it instead of actually having a story and really having meaning. So I don't think that we were telling the right story or telling the story with the right voice. That, however, would not have been my answer when we started working together. I would have thought it had more to do with where's our calendar and can we get some better ads and where's the technology and the feedback loops. And I had much more of a systemic idea about what was needed than the more first principles understanding that I have now about going all the way back to the basics and getting our ideal client profile and talking to them with a story.
Tactics being thrown around all the time right now, tactics, frameworks, whatever you might want to call it, because of all the technology that we have now, because of AI and stuff like that. But I think so few people are actually going back to first principles thinking, basic human psychology, like why is it that marketing and sales works? And I think a lot of that is getting lost with all the noise right now.
I agree with you.
Has our partnership helped change your approach to growth?
It has. So my initial change to growth was more mechanical, and I was more removed from what it was that we did as the CEO. I definitely thought that it could and should be executed independently of me, and maybe at some point we'll get back to that point in time. And so I needed to pay a lot more attention to what the content was, what the quality of that content is, what the voice of that content was, and give much more clear guidelines and feedback than I had been giving about how our marketing was working and what it meant. So our team alignment, because essentially we had to start the team over again, right? After all of the layoffs. So we essentially started the team over again, and we did it much better with much more of my attention that was necessary in order to get that quality defined and that voice defined. So the feedback loops with you were very easy because I could say what I liked or I didn't like, and you were very clear about which tone or persona or voice you were speaking to. And I could say, okay, this works for me. This is a little, aggressive. This is a little too bland. And we could negotiate essentially clarity on what that voice needed to be. I have had a lot of difficulty finding marketing people that could take that feedback and not just execute the specifics about what was needed. So you're able to actually be a thought partner with me and getting the clarity to set up the standards that were necessary to get that going. So I do think that I needed much more involvement from me than I expected, but that thought partnership with you has helped articulate what needs to be the voice. And from that, we've now got a couple people who are able to write with that kind of voice and tone. And so I think we're going to be able to scale out from this reset to our first principles and our basic setup.
So while we've been working together, what area have you got the most value from and why?
Ironically, the area that ended up being the most valuable so far has been the search engine optimization of our website. So we expanded to Uruguay in 2022. And so we tried to remake our site so it would dynamically do Spanish. And in the meantime, we totally tanked how the site worked. So I didn't even know that was a problem, but we didn't have any leads coming in. So it should have been a clue, but I wasn't in touch well enough with the specific website stats to pick up on that soon enough. But you did in your checklist of how to get started. You identified the problem and got that fixed. And then even with our existing content, we started getting some leads coming in, and then improving the content from there has actually been the biggest impact so far, ironically. My general sense is that that wasn't as hard to do as getting the tone and the voice and the ideal client profile tuned up better with the stories and everything that we're doing. My general sense is that that took a lot more effort and time and consideration, and the part that actually had the biggest bang for the buck was the easier part, but I was unaware that it was a problem. So
What is possible for Blu Banyan and yourself now that wasn't possible before I came along?
well, when our website is converting, I'm aware of what their stats are, and that is working to generate leads. The other part is that the additional content and the revised content that's going up there is much more coherent with our voice and our stories, so that it's expandable to have that evergreen effect going forward. I needed to get educated in ways that I wasn't aware that I needed. So I have a much better appreciation for what actually works. The other thing that's really come up is the whole LinkedIn presence. Like, I really hadn't taken building a LinkedIn audience or social media significantly as a point at all. And now we've got regular LinkedIn postings and they tell stories. So it's content that I would care about if I were watching it. So that entire section was brand new for us and has reopened the market, set up a whole bunch of referrals and stuff, like a market that we had seriously been underutilizing as a marketing channel. So it made a huge difference to have that in place. I don't know exactly how many leads we're getting directly from there, but I know that we're getting the ads that are running there are doing well and people are checking it out. That was totally new and great. Thank you for the idea and the execution plan.
The personal brand one is interesting to me. How does it you feel about the actual act of building a personal brand and using that as business development?
Well, to be honest with you, it's not a lot different than how I feel day to day. So it is a big part of the vision, right? Is to develop people who are interested in making game-changing systemic shifts and helping them do better. So the overall vision for Blu Banyan can happen inside Blu Banyan or not. And so it extends the possibility that that can happen randomly with, I mean, it's a lower probability that someone's going to pick up on these materials and help themselves grow to the extent that it is that somebody that's within Blu Banyan is going to, like an employee of Blu Banyan is getting a lot of attention in how they can grow and develop. And for the right audience, it could be the right thing at the right time to help somebody move forward. So for me, it's a natural extension of what I always wanted to do. So I don't see it as a problem or extra or feel any differently about it. I'm just happy to share it with more people. So that part's, it's all just good. Goodness.
With the work that we've done then, with marketing, with sales, with growth, with the tone of voice, how has it positioned Blu Banyan for long-term success?
So Blu Banyan was already working with some really big external entities like Orange Button and the data standards for the Department of Energy for the solar industry. And it's actually enabling Blu Banyan to accomplish its mission better. Because one of the elements of this game-changing systemic shifts is helping solar installers. And Blu Banyan picked that because it's the critical gate. Having solar installers doing well literally determines how much solar you can deploy. Like this boots on the ground, those are the people making it happen. And the people who free up the money so that we've got money going to solar and you have clarity about how the returns work. You've got risk management and you've got clarity about the risks and what those returns are. All of that is supported by having good data. And it's not something that we're especially focused on at Blu Banyan. And so having that brand and having that voice go out further enables us to have a bigger impact with the tooling that we're building in general. So it's been really great for the brand, for Orange Button, for the idea of game-changing shifts. I think it's making a bigger difference. So with the Orange Button setting that up and the larger LinkedIn presence that we have with our bigger conversations, we are getting more connections, people who can help us in ways that I didn't even know were possible. I recently got an introduction to the Department of Energy's loan program office, and we might be able to facilitate some programs for low and moderate income people to get more solar faster through our installer network. So there's a whole bunch of support that can come in from LinkedIn of people who have kindred spirits where they're just doing something that's helpful, but it's not quite the same as what we're doing and vice versa. So we are set up to find and identify a lot of like-minded people to help us grow.
Why did you end up choosing us as a partner to work with?
So I chose to work with Plucky Bamboo and you specifically, Chris, because one, you were very focused in sustainable endeavors. And you had gone through the conversion of I'm just not working for money. I am actually working to accomplish a purpose. So your personal journey was a necessary prerequisite for me to spend a lot of time with you, which I figured I would need to start doing. So the fact that you'd gone through that was really great. The vast majority of marketing agencies that I've been exposed to are not in that place. And so They're really, it's much more transactional, much less fun for me. And I expected to get lower quality output working with other people than I would get with you.
Has our systemic approach to growth been different from the things that you've tried before? And if so, how?
It has been different than what we've done before, primarily because we went all the way back to the quality of the content and starting from the first principles, and also experimenting with the best channels to get the right output that we needed. So, we hadn't really tried anything with LinkedIn. We hadn't really tried to require the quality of content that would be interesting to me to read as a standard. That was new and stuff that we hadn't done before. The SEO we had done before, which is why when we got rid of our Spanish thing, it worked, started working again, and it's better than it was before because of these distinctions. So the parts that we had done before in marketing were improved by your help. And then there were a whole bunch of parts of marketing we hadn't done before, like intentionally doing LinkedIn posts.
Why should someone watching this act right now and get in touch with me, with Plucky Bamboo?
If you're really frustrated with how your current marketing team is working, or they're super transactional with you, like they're just executing the tasks and the activities, but they're not really accomplishing the objectives or getting you the outcomes that you need, which are more quality leads sooner, you should reach out. Chris is going to help you from the beginning. Have a mission, because if you don't have one, he's not going to be interested. So you're interested in doing good things and you'd like to have those quality leads sooner, you should step up. One of the best things about working with Plucky Bamboo and you has been your willingness to play with the team. So you're coming in a bit like a glue guy who's able to see the resources that we already have and not replicate those, and build in the expertise and solidify the areas that we didn't have. So that overarching vision of what a marketing and sales team needs to look like and how they need to perform together was really helpful and has made a big impact.
Thank you so much, Jan. What we did with Jan wasn't magic. We just identified the real constraints holding growth back for them and rebuilt a system around what actually worked. For your sustainability business, the constraint might be something else: messaging, your offer, demand gen, or turning interest into deals. The real bottleneck is rarely where it appears to be at first, and the fix is almost never just a new tactic, gimmick, or marketing campaign from the latest LinkedIn guru. It takes real deep diagnosis and the right system built around it. If your growth engine feels stuck, let's find the constraints and fix them at the root. Reach out and we'll help you identify them and solve them. Thanks for watching.